We have a brand new education commissioner.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
I'm just trying to lighten up the new ed commissioner. I'm trying to explain to her that this is like a weekly thing now for me, right? Just like, oh my goodness, I sat on him, and I'm going to put an extra pair under the table, I promise. Nice to have you aboard. Thank you very much for tuning in to my state of mind, which is frazzled, no doubt. But I got a wheel alignment today, which was really exciting. You should do that because the car feels so much better. This is another one of those days. Steve Laffey's visit yesterday was one, and this is another one. I think I'm just going to forego commentary on the so many things that are going on in the world and here in our own backyard because there's just so much to cover with the new education commissioner. So we will catch up on the big news on the thwarted merger with Care New England and partners. That is huge. We've covered that significantly here and on the radio on WPRO weekdays 3 to 6, of course. And we will follow up as the week goes along, okay? In the meantime, here is a headline that started the whole conversation. A brand new commissioner of education, and as I play with my glasses and read my notes here, the governor introduced her. I was a little bit flummoxed over the process, not the choice, but the process, and I think that we ought to touch base on that, although, you know what, the applicant is not somebody that has responsibility for that. It's really the governance process and model here in the state that I think needs to be revisited. But one of the things that the new commissioner, Angélica Infante-Green, has got to deal with is the big number, meaning the lousy performance of our RICAS testing. Headlines like this caused lots of consternation, and you can see the ed commissioner who clearly had a headache, the outgoing. And of course, when he was here, I was asking for just the last time, not the last time or the second to last time he was here, a recent time, because he was, to his credit, transparent and visible. I asked him, when's anybody going to get really upset about this? I just want you to throw a chair once.
Yeah.
I just want you to throw a chair once. I want people to understand that this isn't funny, this isn't acceptable, and it's not true that our kids perform.
This isn't funny, this isn't acceptable, and it's not true that our kids can't do it. They can do it.
That is a hard act to follow. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of things that you've said, there's a lot of things that have been only in Rhode Island stories, and you've rolled your eyes because you're a fellow, I'm a native New Yorker, born in Flushing, the whole thing, right? So I'm sure you're doing the whole, yeah, believe me, I've seen everything in the Bronx, okay? So believe me, in a year from now when you come back and revisit, you will confirm for me that there's a whole bunch of things that are only in Rhode Island. That was a moment, that was one of them. Welcome, nice to have you.
Thank you.
You excited?
I'm excited. I won't be throwing any chairs, but I think that
Give it time.
All right. Listen, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that we provide the best education. If that's what it takes, then we'll do it.
The decision to come here, what was the most pivotal part of it?
So I will say, I was here about a year and a half ago for Dominican Heritage at Providence. I was asked to be the guest speaker, and it was when a report just came out that talked about the Latinos being dead last in the nation here. And I started talking to the community and saying, this, how could this be? What's going on? And there was dead silence in the room. And I couldn't understand it. I really couldn't. And
Meaning you made a visit and you were at an event here?
I was at an event, and I was moved by the fact that the numbers were so low. And I was saying to the parents, like, what's going on here? And I was a little passionate.
They said nothing?
And there was silence in the room. And I couldn't get it. I didn't understand why that silence was there. I come from an immigrant background. Immigrants are hard workers and usually a lot less tolerant. So I didn't get it. At that moment, I started doing my homework and try to understand why there was this sense of it's okay. And so when this opportunity came, I thought it was something that I needed to do. Not that I wanted to, I needed to do this. It felt like a moral imperative for me. And it almost felt like this is where I was brought by destiny, whatever it is, but I couldn't sit back after that. I left here feeling very uncomfortable. with how okay people were with kind of the status quo. That bothered me.
Well, you know, that's fascinating. Guess what? Latino people, black people, other minorities designated are no different than
That's
white
right.
people.
That's right.
And what you're going to learn is that this state is beat down. Everyone is beat down. We've had some pivotal moments. There's a chronic complaint about this saga of 38 studios, which if you don't know about, you need to learn about. It is, I'm not here to educate you or lecture you. We'll get a cup of coffee, I'll fill you in on the whole thing. But I will tell you that, or a couple of drinks, because you might need it. But the thing here is that this is not a surprise to me when you tell me that, because we actually were talking with a potential gubernatorial candidate last night in 2022. Steve Laffey, former Cranston mayor, has left town. He's coming back. He thinks, but I was talking about whether or not he has a fire to light, or there's a fire that he has to harness. You know, and there's no doubt there's a fire that needs to be lit, because the place is in a very unique malaise. The economy is okay, and so we don't have a panic, but we definitely have a lethargy that I have seen. I've been here 20 years, just passing by the way, in Rhode Island. But in the last 10, it has slowed. So you're going to have an interesting challenge, I think. I mean, there are pockets of people who will be aggressive and are aggravated and want to see change. But I don't feel, and this is a question I've asked everybody, and this is part of what the whole funny chair thing was all about with the former commissioner, who has a lot of credit from me for forcing the RICAS testing so we could have some equity. I was asking him if he felt the bottom-up insurgency. I've asked everybody in this state who has a principal role in this whether they feel that, and none of them can tell me they do. The movers and shakers are doing what they think they have to do based on the scores showing us up. But I'm telling you, you're going to find that lethargy is not unique to the Latino community. So that's my speech. I didn't mean to make it, but since you offered me that story, that's perspective. Reaction?
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. You know, the word that I keep hearing from everyone, there isn't enough outrage. And I agree. But at this point, we have to build that outrage and then move into action.
Why
right?
do you think? Do you have any idea why there's no outrage from as a fresh perspective and a new look and a smart person who's been in many places where there is?
I think it's been happening for such a long time. I think your language of being beat down is accurate. I think that we need to come from a place of where we can do things. Like, let's harness that energy to figure out where we can move forward. And I think that we've been doing things piecemeal, and we feel it, right? So if I'm worried about where my next meal is going to come from, or if I'm worried about, you know, who's going to take my child to school, or where my next job is, I'm not really thinking about, okay, what's going to happen in the school. And also, I think that the part that's hard is they don't know different, right? I keep getting this conversation
Who they?
of, well, I think as a community, we're in a place that this is what we know, this is what we've seen. I think you're right. Ken Wagner was very smart about the RICAS scores, because that has caused people to look and think about this. I just came from a district this morning where they're actually looking at data. I've been to other districts where data has not been part of the conversation. It just has not been. So I think that we're ready to move in that direction. And I am meeting with all the superintendents, calling them in. We're looking at the data together and creating a plan. I'm not okay with it. I'm not. But I'm ready to move from not being okay to what are we going to do about it. I don't want us to sit in that space. I don't know if that makes sense. That's what people want to hear. There's no sexy answer for this. There isn't this magic bullet.
Here's the thing that I'm asking about. By the way, during the break, I'll tell you about my outhouse theory, which is something that, well, I'll tell you now since I teased it. To your point that they don't know any different. You know, if you've never gone potty in anything else but an outhouse, you don't know how good an American standard toilet really is until you flush it. And I know that's crude, but what I've used that for 20 years here, talking about things when I was an outsider, talking about things that have been done in other places and the way things can be done, and people kind of go, what? You know? So change agency is hard around here. There have been a lot of people who come running in here at 100 miles an hour and end up leaving at 10. Not that it's, you know, it's not Siberia, but it really is a tough place to make changes. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the comparisons, like I tell you, on the junior varsity level versus the varsity level. And we'll explain that when we come back. Stay with us.
It really is unacceptable. You know, it kind of took the wind out of me, and that's when I felt like, all right, we have to do this. I felt really motivated and passionate to do this work because we have to change that.
Your reaction to RightCast testing, I also want to talk about the meeting that you had in Providence where you talked about being a little bit overwhelmed with the community response. My press to public officials, we had the Speaker of the House here the other day talking about this very thing, is that part of this lethargy, I feel, is the city of Providence has its own huge challenges. The suburbs could give a rat's patootie about Providence's challenges. Now this is racial, this is socioeconomic, this is all those things, right? But what's going on around here is that, okay, we get some RightCast tests, and Barrington tops, and East Greenwich tops, and they're like, you know, bump-a-bump-a-bump-a-bum, and Cumberland, my hometown, sends out a press release that we zoomed from 7th to 3rd with the better testing, whatever that number was. And I'm screaming, who cares about winning the junior varsity game? I want to know what Barrington's comparable Massachusetts town is and find out most likely that Long Meadow, Massachusetts kicks their tail in, that East Greenwich is getting waxed by a suburban Boston town, and that Central Falls needs to measure against Brockton and Providence. If we're going to test against Massachusetts, can we please compare ourselves to Massachusetts? Do you subscribe to that?
Yeah, well, since I've gotten here, I've heard a lot about Massachusetts.
Well, it's not going to stop.
Well, and that's okay if that's what motivates us, right? But you're right. I think we have to do a comparison. And the one comparison that we have done is that if all of Rhode Island were a district in Massachusetts, we'd be in the 10th lowest performing district, all of Rhode Island. So I think we need to keep that in the forefront as we do this work.
Well, I hope when those supers come in from these towns I'm mentioning, that you tell them not to be so cocky, because they're very cocky.
Well, I don't think we should be cocky. I don't think there's one district that can't improve. And I say that because I've been to them.
But their kids go to colleges. And so what's the problem?
Well, one thing is going to college and being one of, right? Another thing is to go to college and excel and outperform everyone. I am an extremely competitive person. Our kids have to outperform. That's what I'm looking for. Rhode Island, since I've been here, beautiful state. Everybody's very proud. I've listened to you, and you're very proud to be from Rhode Island since you've been here. And it can't be that our education system is not something that we're proud of. So I think we can do this. I know we can do it. It doesn't matter what kid we're talking about, whether you come from the poorest community, the richest community. It is the same. The kids have to perform the same.
Let's talk about you being a super in Providence. The governance model there is god awful. And actually, you and I had a minor flirtation with debate when you first got here. When I asked you about the governance models, and you were kind of like, "I just got here, pal. Hello." I'm saying, my family. It's just governance models, But I know you're somebody who does their homework, and I think that the governance model thing is something that you really got to get a harness on. Providence is weird. It's in the same sense that I think Rhode Island needs to employ the mayoral form of at least hybrid management of school committees, so there's some synergy between the governments, councils, and committees. Jorge Alorza, because he is the mayor, has way too much control and literally suffocated this last superintendent who's screaming, into his pillow. And that's why he's leaving. Everybody kind of knows that. Have you recognized and had a chance to look at that yet? Before you get into the stuff, like the stuff you're really good at, the stuff that, like the programmatical stuff that you can't wait to get in there with, have you looked at the governance model yet?
I have.
And your thought is?
Well, I think a lot of things need to change. I don't think I'm in a place to say what that needs to look like, but I do realize that we haven't done a great job.
So, do we set up a school? So when you have your chance to get your footing, I hope you come back and talk to me about that. I'm not going to pin you with whether the school committee ought to report to the mayor or the council or be elected or appointed, but it has to be shaken up. Do you agree?
I agree.
So, your role and some of the pre-sale on your hire here was your urban, excellent resume and your skill set there. We have a vacancy coming in the superintendency in Providence. Is it urgent to fill that, or do you want to get in there first and till the ground a little bit and figure out who ought to be in there, and then influence City Hall, because the Ed Commissioner doesn't have a report to authority? What's the shimmy?
So I'm sure you've heard, we did this review, it was over last week.
Right.
We will have a report second week of June. I requested that report.
Anything cool in it? Any previews? Anything like, whoa?
Well, I think we're not going to be surprised. I don't know all the details. I've heard, because what we did is we had Johns Hopkins come in, but we also had local leaders come in, because I think that people thought they knew what was happening in Providence.
Yeah.
And when
Pretty dumb that they
went
didn't call key media people in, because they should have.
And you know what? You're right about that. You're right about that, because
They should have spent 15 minutes with me. I could have given them a lot of help. And that's not cocky. That's the problem we have in this state, new commissioner. Everybody who makes decisions talks to themselves about things.
Right, and that's why, so I need you to know, and everyone, that we were not part of the review. I was very clear that we needed to get the results
Right.
and then make
But they're
decisions.
the same,
I need to know.
the same movers and shakers, and there has been some spawn of parental organizations in Providence that are really trying to but,
Yes.
but they are neophytes, and they're trying hard, and they're trying to figure out what the right thing is. Are you going to be a super in Providence? Is that your mission statement here? Characterize what your role is going to be for the city.
You know, we're working that out. Once we get the report, what I can tell you is that I am going to be on the ground in Providence. What that looks like, we haven't worked that out. But I will not allow the scores to continue. And when I say the scores, I need people to understand this, and I want you to hear this. When we say that only 10% of the kids in Providence can do math on grade level, that means 90 can't. That's crazy. That's insane. So I think we need to start talking about this, about kids, because I don't think people are understanding what the numbers mean. And to me, that's unacceptable. So you talk about these parent groups, we need to harness them. I felt like we had a parent convening, and I heard the pain. I heard the parents.
And you
come
said
out.
you were a little bit overwhelmed.
I was very emotional during that session, because parents were coming feeling like they were failed when they were part of the school system. Now their kids are being failed. That's not okay. I'm not okay with that. I didn't come here to be part of status quo, but I came here to work with people. I understand that if I am fighting, it's going to take us twice as long.
Well, you're going to have to help all those illegal immigrants. They're all here. Well, that says a lot of the constituency.
They can say what they have to say. I see kids. I see kids, and I see the health of Rhode Island.
Well,
That's what I see.
You're going to have to explain why that matters to everyone else, because the disdain that a lot of people have with their state tax dollars supporting a Providence malfunctioning system has burnt them out for financial support, psychological support, emotional support. We have forgotten about how the economy is so much better advantaged by a performing educational system.
That's right.
And I hope that you're able to translate that, because the bleeding heart kids thing
That's right.
ain't going to sell out in the places that you need to fund what you want to do.
I totally agree with you. This is about the health of Rhode Island. I can't express, industry is not going to come here or stay here if we don't have a vibrant education system. They understand that. We need to understand that. You know, this is a beautiful state. I have not gone to a community that I have not found amazing and beautiful homes, and everybody's very proud of where they are from, which also poses a challenge,
Within
right?
a 10-minute range.
Right, exactly. So I went from one district to the other, and I had no idea that I had crossed into another
Strangest
district.
50-mile long, 35-mile stretch in America where we ought to be proud of being Rhode Islanders.
That's right.
We are in a sense, but we're much more provincial than the geographic plat actually calls for. It's a very unique place. Can't wait in a year's time as you're making all these notes. And we come back, I want to talk about some of the suburban challenges, like the one they have in Coventry that we covered last week. Stay with us. We have a problem in this country and in this region, and I think it's perfected in Coventry, generational interest in funding the budgets, and specifically schools.
Right. I kind of feel like that's completely being disrespectful to a community. People have sacrificed so much for us. Look at Memorial Day, and we're asking people who seem to have, like, as Mr. Murray said, amnesia, invest in your community. Most of these people have had a great life because of Coventry.
Interesting thing we have going on. We have an urban suburban thing, which is not unique to Rhode Island, but it's going to be it's on steroids here, and you're going to have to figure that whole thing out, as we talked about last segment. The other thing that we've seen, I think, in America too, and also perfected here with our aging demographics, is that once my kids are out of school, I'm like, good, I did my thing. And Coventry is dealing with that. They have an 8% voter turnout on a referendum to approve the budget, which is important for the schools, right?
Right.
And it goes down 2-1. Then, of course, the ignoramus constituency out there says, "Oh my God, I didn't know that was going to happen," and then they rush in and they ask for, a new vote, and now they're getting it. But what he and I, the superintendent, who's terrific in Coventry, and we're talking about, was this generational divide as well. How do we address that?
Well, I think it goes back to the conversation we just had. This is about the economic health of this state. Whether I have kids there or not, it shouldn't matter. It's about what's going to happen to the next generation. Those are the people that are going to be taking care of you and I as we get older. This is the generation. And if we're not investing in them, then I think that we are putting our own safety at risk, because what's going to happen to Rhode Island? I really think about it every single day. And so it's not just there. I also heard this in Newport, people are getting older. They don't want, their money is also tight. They want to figure out what to invest in. And this can't be about us personally. This has to be about Rhode Island.
And in Warwick last night, we got a headline. In Warwick, you got a $165 million budget that's not sufficient, reportedly. And a couple hundred kids and parents show up at the town council thinking they're somebody they can speak to about it. The council's like, wait a second, you're not even on the agenda. Here's a video of it. And you're not even on the agenda. And oh, by the way, we're not the ones making that decision. The acumen on how the process works is at an all-time low. And I wonder if that's going to be part of your mission.
Yes, it will be, because part of this is educating everyone on, one, how to advocate, where the decisions are made, and where they can influence change. So I'm hearing this now, but I've heard this in several districts where people don't know where to go, what the process is like, and I think that it's a problem.
They ask mayors about why the cheerleaders aren't funded. Mayors say, mayors, at Stop and Shop and doing the vegetable, Mayor, how come the cheerleaders are funded? Mayor says, that's not me. And they say, what do you mean it's not you, the mayor? I mean, there's that whole thing going on here. 20 seconds. Tell me why you want to do this job so badly, especially after this conversation.
Well, I actually have to say that I appreciate this conversation. You are probably one of the most honest people that I have met with. But I want to do this because everybody's on board. I think we're all on the same boat. And we just have to row in the same direction. And I feel like education saved my life. And we have a responsibility to all the kids. I don't want anyone to think that I'm only here for Providence or the urban core. I'm here for every single district, and I'm going to hold every single district accountable, but I'm going to work with every single district.
Come back often.
I will.
We'll teach you how to throw the chair if you want to. Final word and we come back. Stay with us. Interesting concepts the new ed commissioner brings to us. When she says, everybody's on board, I've heard that from newcomer mover and shakers often. I'm not suggesting that she's on a path for repeating the same kind of ugh. But here's the difference. It's about us. See, do we want to win, or do we feel like we need to win? Those are big differences. We'll see you tomorrow and on the radio at 3 on WPRO. Good night.